The focus of this study is protest reduction through token systems and level systems using multiple baseline across participants' design. The participants chosen for this study range between the ages of 4 and 7. Two of them were male and one was female. All of the participants engaged in various forms of protesting, and protests were defined as flopping, whining, and noncompliance. A token chart and level system were taught to reduce protests when presented demands in order to increase skill acquisition. The research question for this study is, will level systems in combination with token economies reduce protest behaviors across participants? For social validity, this skill is going to assist in behavior management as well as protest reduction. Functional communication training and coping skills were taught as alternative replacement behaviors. And following FBAs for all of the participants, it was identified that escape and denied access were the functions of these protests. For supporting literature, the first study here demonstrated that reduced emotional outbursts and increased time on task were observed through level systems. The second study demonstrated that extinction was not necessary as the token system alone was able to reduce barrier behavior. And the third study demonstrated that token economies were proven successful in a classroom setting. The design utilized was a multiple baseline across participants, the independent variable being the token chart in conjunction with the level system, and the dependent variable being protest reduction following demands. For data collection, frequency data was collected for total daily protests, as well as total opportunities for the implementation of the intervention. An independent error method was utilized to determine if the client protested following the completion of the token and level system. For baseline procedures, protest data was collected as a daily frequency to identify the average protests following demands, and participants were identified based on their current behavior reduction goals. For the intervention, each of these participants engaged in the completion of the token chart on an FR5 schedule of reinforcement. So 4 of those tokens were maintenance skills, and 1 of those tokens was an acquisition skill, which would follow the 80-20 rule. Following that token chart completion, the participant was able to engage in their chosen reinforcement for approximately 5 to 10 seconds. And then following this post-reinforcement pause, the level system was presented to identify that participant's affect. There were 3 zones in this level system. There was the green zone, the yellow zone, and the red zone. The green zone indicated an independent or absence of protests. The yellow and red zone identified as errors in which the client protested for a specified duration of time. For the results, it was identified that when the token chart was utilized, there were less protests. Overall, all participants demonstrated 80 to 100% absence of protests following the implementation of that token chart and level system. Some implications of this study: the results of this study demonstrated that there was still an increased rate of protests when the intervention was not implemented, but it was observed that as soon as that token chart came out and the level system was presented, those protests reduced significantly. Limitations for this study: there is a lack of sufficient baseline and intervention data for my third participant due to the exclusion of a previously chosen participant due to lack of attendance. Further research would include component analysis study to identify the most effective component of this study, whether it be the tokens themselves or the level system by itself. It would be interesting to find out which part of this intervention would have been the most successful.